In the hills of Afghanistan, surrounded by enemy fighters who thought they had cornered easy prey, nobody expected salvation to come from a quiet woman with steady hands and secrets buried deeper than mountain caves. They saw a female medic. They didn't see the legend who had trained her. One bullet would reveal the truth, but by then, it would be too late for those who underestimated her. Some stories begin with a bang. This one ends with a whisper of wind through a rifle barrel, and the silence that follows when a master's student finally reveals what she learned in the shadows of America's most classified training grounds. Sarah Chun had always been invisible, and that was exactly how she liked it. Growing up in a small town in Oregon, she was the girl who helped her grandfather in his hunting shop, the one who could thread a needle in dim light and shoot a tin can off a fence post at 100 yards. Nobody paid much attention to the quiet Asian girl who preferred books to parties and spent her weekends tracking deer through the forest with her grandfather. Her grandfather, Chun Wei, had emigrated from Taiwan in the 1960s, carrying with him skills that he never spoke about but that Sarah absorbed through countless hours in the woods. He taught her to move without sound, to breathe through her shots, to see patterns in chaos. He never told her that these were the same skills he had learned as a young soldier, the same techniques that had kept him alive through conflicts that history books would only whisper about. Sarah's path to the military began not with patriotic fervor or family tradition, but with necessity. When her grandfather suffered a stroke during her senior year of high school, the medical bills piled up faster than her part-time job at the local diner could cover. The Army recruiter who visited her school talked about education benefits and steady pay, but what caught Sarah's attention was the possibility of becoming a medic. She could save lives and serve her country while gaining skills that would help her care for her grandfather. Basic training at Fort Leonard Wood was where Sarah first realized that her childhood with her grandfather had been anything but ordinary. While other recruits struggled with marksmanship, she qualified expert on her first attempt. While others crashed through the woods during land navigation exercises, she moved like a shadow, arriving at checkpoint after checkpoint ahead of schedule and without making a sound. Drill Sergeant Martinez noticed her first. A grizzled veteran with 3 tours in Iraq, he had an eye for natural talent. After watching Sarah consistently outshoot recruits who had been hunting their entire lives, he pulled her aside after a particularly challenging day on the range. "Chun, where did you learn to shoot like that?" Martinez asked, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen real combat. "My grandfather taught me," Sarah replied simply, her voice steady and respectful. Martinez studied her for a long moment. There was something in the way she carried herself, something in the precision of her movements, that spoke of training far beyond casual hunting lessons. He made a note in her file that would later catch the attention of people whose names didn't appear on any official roster. During medical training at Fort Sam Houston, Sarah excelled beyond expectations. Her hands, trained by years of delicate work in her grandfather's shop and steadied by countless hours of shooting practice, were perfect for the precise work of a combat medic. She could insert N4 in a moving vehicle, suture wounds under pressure, and triage casualties with a calm efficiency that amazed her instructors. But it was during a joint training exercise with Special Forces that Sarah's unusual combination of medical and tactical skills truly came to light. The exercise was designed to test medics under realistic combat conditions, with Special Forces soldiers acting as both wounded casualties and enemy combatants. The scenario was complex, a downed helicopter in hostile territory, with casualties scattered across difficult terrain while enemy forces closed in. Most medics would focus solely on treating the wounded and calling for evacuation. Sarah did something different. Moving through the mock battlefield with her medical bag, she treated the wounded with swift efficiency, but she also began to notice patterns in the simulated enemy movements. Her grandfather's training kicked in as she observed firing positions, identified likely sniper nests, and tracked the flow of the exercise like she was reading deer sign in the Oregon woods. When one of the Special Forces soldiers playing an enemy sniper took a position that would have made evacuation impossible in a real scenario, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. Instead of just calling out the threat, she used her medical supplies to create a distraction, then flanked the position using terrain that others hadn't even noticed. The exercise ended with Sarah not only treating all the casualties successfully, but also neutralizing the primary threat through tactical movement that impressed even the Special Forces observers. Captain James Mitchell, the Special Forces officer overseeing the exercise, approached her after the debrief. "Specialist Chun, that was some impressive work out there," Mitchell said, his tone suggesting this was more than routine praise. "Tell me, have you ever considered advanced training beyond the medical field?" Sarah looked at him carefully. There was something in his manner that reminded her of her grandfather when he was teaching her the more serious lessons about awareness and survival. "I'm focused on being the best medic I can be, sir." Mitchell smiled, but his eyes remained serious. "The Army has programs for soldiers with unique skill sets. Programs that could use someone with your particular combination of medical training and tactical awareness. Interested in hearing more?" That conversation led to a meeting with people whose uniforms bore no identifying marks, in a building that didn't officially exist on any Fort Bragg map. They asked her questions about her background, her grandfather, and her motivations. They tested her in ways that went far beyond standard military assessments, evaluating not just her shooting skills, but her ability to think under pressure, to adapt to changing situations, and to maintain cover while operating independently. The final test came on a cold December morning in the North Carolina woods. Sarah was given a scenario. She was a medic attached to a small unit that had been ambushed. The wounded needed immediate care, but enemy snipers controlled the high ground. She had to save lives while neutralizing the threat. What she didn't know was that observing her performance was a legend in the special operations community, a man whose real name was classified, but whose reputation among those who needed to know was unmatched. Master Sergeant William Ghost Turner had been the Army's premier sniper instructor for over 2 decades, training soldiers who would go on to become legends themselves in places that would never be mentioned in newspapers. Turner watched through high-powered optics as Sarah moved through the exercise with a combination of medical precision and tactical awareness that he had rarely seen. She treated the wounded efficiently, but she also used the terrain and her understanding of ballistics to create safe zones for evacuation. When the moment came for her to take the critical shot that would end the exercise, she made it from a position and at a distance that impressed even Turner. After the exercise, Turner made a decision that would remain classified for years to come. He approached the anonymous officials who ran the program and made a recommendation that was as rare as it was significant. "I want to train her personally," Turner said simply. "This one is different." The training that followed was unlike anything Sarah had ever imagined. For 6 months, she divided her time between official medical duties and unofficial instruction that took place in hidden ranges, abandoned buildings, and remote wilderness areas. Turner taught her not just to shoot, but to think like a sniper. He showed her how to read wind patterns, calculate range and bullet drop, and, most importantly, how to remain completely invisible while observing and engaging targets. Turner's methods were unconventional. He didn't just teach techniques, he taught philosophy. "A sniper isn't just someone who can make a long shot," he would tell her during their sessions. "A sniper is someone who can remain undetected, gather intelligence, and strike with precision when the mission demands it. But, most importantly, a sniper knows when not to shoot." The psychological aspects of the training were as challenging as the physical ones. Turner taught Sarah how to control her heartbeat, how to enter an almost meditative state that would allow her to remain motionless for hours if necessary, and how to compartmentalize the emotional weight of taking a life when it was necessary to save others. "Your medical training makes you better at this than you realize," Turner explained during one of their sessions. "You understand anatomy, you understand how to save lives, and that understanding will help you make clean, ethical shots when you have no choice but to take a life to preserve others." Sarah's grandfather visited her once during this period, though she couldn't tell him the details of her additional training. As they sat together in a small restaurant near Fort Bragg, Chenwei looked at his granddaughter with eyes that seemed to see more than she was telling him. "You have learned much since joining the Army," he said in his careful English. "You move differently now. You watch things differently." Sarah felt a chill at his words. "What do you mean, grandfather?" Chenwei was quiet for a long moment, his weathered hands wrapped around his coffee cup. There are skills that are passed down not through words, but through practice. I taught you to hunt, to shoot, to move quietly. But there were other things I learned long ago, in a different time, that I hoped you would never need to know. He paused, studying her face. But perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps the world still has need for those who can protect others from the shadows. Sarah realized in that moment that her grandfather's past held secrets she had never suspected, and that her own training was preparing her for a future that would test every skill he had ever taught her. She also understood that the quiet man across from her had once been something more than a simple immigrant shopkeeper. The final phase of Turner's training took place in a facility that didn't appear on any official maps, in desert terrain that simulated the environments where Sarah would eventually serve. Here, Turner introduced her to equipment that was far beyond standard military issue. Custom rifles with precision optics, specialized ammunition, and communication equipment that would allow her to operate independently while maintaining contact with friendly forces. Your official designation will remain combat medic, Turner explained as they worked together on the range. But you'll carry additional equipment and have additional mission parameters that won't appear in any standard operating procedures. Your medical duties come first, always. But when the situation requires it, you'll have capabilities that can save lives in ways that conventional medicine cannot. The training culminated with a final exercise that combined everything Turner had taught her. Sarah was inserted into a mock battlefield scenario where she had to provide medical support to a unit under siege while also gathering intelligence and, if necessary, providing precision fire support. The exercise lasted 3 days and covered over 50 square miles of difficult terrain. Turner observed her performance from multiple positions, sometimes visible to her as a training observer, sometimes completely hidden to test her awareness and ability to operate independently. What he saw convinced him that his months of training had been successful. Sarah moved through the exercise with the confidence of someone who had fully integrated her medical training with her new tactical skills. She provided medical care efficiently and professionally, but she also demonstrated an ability to read the battlefield, identify threats, and position herself to maximum advantage. When the final scenario required her to make a precision shot to neutralize a threat that would have compromised the entire unit, she executed it flawlessly. After the exercise, Turner handed Sarah a small wooden box that contained items that wouldn't appear in any inventory. A custom scope that had been personally calibrated to her shooting style, ammunition that had been hand-loaded to specifications that matched her preferred rifle, and a small notebook that contained range cards and ballistic data for various environments where she might serve. "This stays between us," Turner said as she examined the contents. "Officially, you're a combat medic. But if the time comes when you need to use what I've taught you, you'll know what to do." As Sarah prepared for her first deployment, she carried with her not just the standard equipment of a combat medic, but also the hidden knowledge and skills that Turner had taught her. She had no way of knowing that this training would prove critical in a remote valley in Afghanistan, where her unit would find itself surrounded by enemies who expected an easy victory against what they perceived as a vulnerable medical convoy. The deployment orders came through regular channels, but Sarah suspected that her assignment to a specific unit in a particular region of Afghanistan was not entirely coincidental. She would be part of a small medical team attached to a forward operating base in a region known for its difficult terrain and active insurgent presence. As her transport lifted off from Fort Bragg, carrying her toward a conflict that would test every skill she had learned, Sarah thought about the path that had brought her to this moment. From her grandfather's quiet lessons in the Oregon woods to Turner's intense training in classified facilities, she had been prepared for something that she was only beginning to understand. The mountains of Afghanistan would soon test whether the quiet girl from Oregon had truly learned what it meant to be both a healer and a guardian, and whether Turner's confidence in her abilities had been justified. The transport helicopter descended through thin mountain air toward Forward Operating Base Sentinel, a collection of concrete barriers and prefabricated buildings carved into a valley floor that seemed to exist at the edge of the world. Sarah pressed her face to the small window, studying the terrain below with eyes that had been trained to see more than most soldiers would notice. The valley was a tactical nightmare, surrounded by ridgelines that provided countless positions for enemy observation and fire. The base itself was positioned in what military planners optimistically called a defensible position, but what Sarah recognized as a potential killing field if enemy forces ever gained control of the high ground. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory as she studied the landscape. Always know where your enemy can hide, little one. The hunter who ignores the terrain becomes the hunted. Forward Operating Base Sentinel housed approximately 200 soldiers from various units. But Sarah's assignment was to a specialized medical team that supported the small reconnaissance and patrol units that operated throughout the region. Her official mission was straightforward: provide medical support for soldiers conducting operations in some of the most dangerous terrain in Afghanistan. Her unofficial capabilities remained known only to a select few. Team leader Captain Maria Rodriguez met Sarah at the landing zone, a no-nonsense medical officer whose reputation for keeping soldiers alive in impossible situations had earned her respect throughout the command structure. Rodriguez had requested Sarah specifically, though she had not been told the complete reason for Sarah's unique qualifications. "Welcome to the edge of civilization, Specialist Chun," Rodriguez said as they walked toward the medical facility, a reinforced concrete structure that served as both clinic and field hospital. "I hope you're ready for some interesting work, because this place has a way of testing every skill you've ever learned." The medical facility was impressively equipped for its remote location, with surgical capabilities, advanced diagnostic equipment, and sufficient supplies to handle mass casualty events. But Sarah noticed details that suggested this base served purposes beyond standard military operations. The communications equipment was more sophisticated than typical forward bases, and the personnel she observed moving around the compound carried themselves with the quiet professionalism of special operations forces. Sarah's first week at Sentinel involved routine medical duties that allowed her to observe and learn the patterns of the base. She treated soldiers for everything from routine illnesses to injuries sustained during patrol operations, but she also began to understand the larger tactical picture of their area of operations. The valley served as a key infiltration route for insurgent forces moving between Pakistan and the more populated areas of Afghanistan. Intelligence reports suggested that high-value targets frequently used the mountain passes, but the terrain made surveillance and interdiction extremely difficult. Standard helicopter operations were limited by altitude and weather, while ground patrols could easily be observed from the commanding heights that surrounded every possible route. It was during her second week that Sarah first met the soldiers who would later depend on her unique skills for their survival. Staff Sergeant Mike Thompson led a reconnaissance team specializing in long-range patrols that gathered intelligence on insurgent movement patterns. Thompson was a veteran of multiple deployments who had developed an intuitive understanding of how to operate in terrain that seemed designed to favor the enemy. "Doc, I hear you're pretty handy with more than just medical equipment," Thompson said during a casual conversation in the base dining facility. His tone was carefully neutral, but his eyes suggested he had been briefed on more than Sarah's official medical credentials. "I've had some additional training," Sarah replied, maintaining the careful balance between acknowledgement and operational security that Turner had taught her. Thompson nodded, apparently satisfied with her response. "We might have some interesting work coming up. The kind where having someone with your particular skill set could make the difference between coming home and becoming a statistic." The mission briefing came 3 days later in a secure conference room that Sarah had not known existed within the base. Present were Thompson and his team, Captain Rodriguez, and a man introduced only as Mr. Johnson, whose civilian clothes couldn't quite hide his military bearing. Johnson's presence suggested that the upcoming operation involved elements beyond standard military procedures. "Gentlemen, ladies," Johnson began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to briefing operations that would never appear in official records. "We have intelligence suggesting that a high-value target will be transiting through the Khyber Valley corridor within the next 72 hours. This individual has been responsible for coordinating attacks that have killed dozens of coalition forces and hundreds of Afghan civilians." The map displayed on the briefing screen showed a route through terrain that seemed almost impossible to monitor effectively. The target would be traveling with a small security detail through mountain passes that provided multiple escape routes and countless positions for overwatch. Standard interdiction methods would be ineffective due to the terrain and the target's likely security measures. Staff Sergeant Thompson's team will establish observation positions along the likely route, Johnson continued. However, the distances involved and the terrain make traditional surveillance challenging. We need someone with advanced observational skills and the ability to provide precision engagement if the opportunity presents itself. Sarah understood immediately why she had been included in the briefing. The mission required someone with her unique combination of medical support capabilities and the specialized skills that Turner had taught her. She would accompany Thompson's team officially as their medic, but with additional responsibilities that would not appear in any after-action report. Specialist Chun, you'll be responsible for medical support for the team, Rodriguez said, maintaining the official cover story even in the classified briefing. But, given the nature of the terrain and the potential for extended operations, you'll also need to be prepared for additional responsibilities as the situation develops. Johnson's final words carried the weight of classification that would follow the operation regardless of its outcome. This mission requires precision, patience, and the ability to make critical decisions under extreme pressure. The target represents a significant threat to coalition forces and civilian populations throughout the region. We have one opportunity to eliminate this threat, and failure is not acceptable. Preparation for the operation consumed the next 48 hours. Sarah packed her standard medical equipment, but she also carefully selected additional items that Turner had taught her to carry. The custom scope that he had given her was concealed within her medical pack, along with the specialized ammunition and range cards that might prove critical in the mountains. Thompson's team consisted of 4 soldiers who specialized in long-range reconnaissance operations. Sergeant First Class David Kim served as the team's communications specialist and assistant team leader. Specialist James Morrison handled advanced surveillance equipment and served as the designated marksman. Private First Class Alex Rivera was responsible for heavy weapons and demolitions. Each team member was a veteran of multiple combat deployments, and their easy professionalism suggested they were accustomed to operations that pushed the boundaries of conventional military procedures. The team's equipment reflected the specialized nature of their mission. Beyond standard infantry weapons and communications gear, they carried advanced surveillance equipment, climbing gear for the mountainous terrain, and weapons systems that provided precision engagement capability at extended ranges. Sarah noted that Morrison carried a precision rifle that was similar to the weapons she had trained with under Turner's instruction. The insertion point was a small valley approximately 15 kilometers from the target area, chosen because it provided concealed landing zones while offering multiple routes toward the objective area. The helicopter flight followed terrain contours that kept the aircraft below radar coverage while navigating through mountain passes that required exceptional pilot skill. Sarah felt the familiar calm that Turner had taught her to cultivate before operations as the helicopter descended toward their insertion point. Her medical training focused her on the responsibility of keeping her team members alive and healthy during what could become an extended operation in harsh conditions. But Turner's additional training reminded her that she might also be responsible for eliminating threats that could not be addressed through conventional medical intervention. The landing zone was a small clearing surrounded by rocky terrain that provided excellent concealment, but challenging movement routes toward their objective. As the helicopter lifted off, leaving the team alone in the vast wilderness, Sarah felt the weight of isolation that came with deep reconnaissance operations. Thompson immediately established security while the team conducted equipment checks and confirmed their position using GPS and map references. Sarah verified that her medical equipment had survived the insertion without damage, while also conducting discreet checks of her additional gear. Comms check with base, Thompson ordered as Kim established contact with forward operating base Sentinel. The radio protocols they used were designed to provide necessary coordination while maintaining operational security for a team that officially did not exist in their current location. Movement toward the target area began immediately, with Morrison leading the team along routes that he had identified during map reconnaissance. The terrain was challenging, requiring careful navigation through rocky passages while maintaining noise discipline that would prevent detection by any enemy forces that might be conducting their own surveillance operations. Sarah moved with the quiet efficiency that her grandfather had taught her, stepping carefully on rocky surfaces while managing her equipment load in ways that minimized noise and maintained her ability to respond quickly to medical emergencies or tactical situations. Turner's training influenced her movement techniques, teaching her to observe the terrain not just as obstacles to overcome, but as potential firing positions and cover that might prove critical if the team came under attack. The first day of movement covered approximately 8 kilometers through terrain that challenged even experienced mountain soldiers. The team established a patrol base in a concealed position that provided observation routes toward the target area while offering multiple escape routes if their position became compromised. As evening approached, Thompson positioned team members in observation posts while establishing communication schedules that would maintain contact with base while preserving their concealment. Sarah prepared medical supplies for the extended operation while also conducting discrete range estimation exercises that would prepare her for potential engagement scenarios. "Doc, you've got the midnight to 4 watch," Thompson informed her as the team settled into their defensive positions. "Keep an eye on the northern approaches, and wake me immediately if you observe anything unusual." Sarah's watch position provided excellent observation of the routes that intelligence reports suggested the target would use during his transit through the area. Using night vision equipment that amplified available starlight, she could observe terrain features and movement patterns across distances that would be invisible to unaided observation. During her 4-hour watch, Sarah observed the natural rhythms of the mountain environment. Small animals moved along established trails, while the wind patterns created sounds that could mask human movement or create false alarms for inexperienced observers. Turner's training had taught her to distinguish between natural environmental sounds and the subtle indicators of human presence. At approximately 2 in the morning, Sarah detected movement patterns that suggested human activity approximately 1 kilometer to the north of their position. Using hand signals that Turner had taught her, she alerted Thompson without creating noise that might compromise their position. Thompson moved to her observation position and confirmed her assessment using thermal imaging equipment that detected heat signatures invisible to standard night vision devices. What they observed was a small group of individuals conducting what appeared to be reconnaissance of the same area that intelligence reports had identified as the target's likely route. "Advanced security," Thompson whispered, his assessment confirming Sarah's suspicions. "They're checking the route before the main group arrives." The presence of advanced security meant that the target was likely to arrive within the next 24 to 48 hours, and that his security measures were more sophisticated than intelligence estimates had suggested. It also meant that Thompson's team would need to remain concealed while potentially enemy forces operated in close proximity to their position. Sarah understood that the mission had entered its most critical phase. The team's concealment, their ability to gather intelligence on the target's movement, and potentially their survival, would depend on maintaining their position while remaining undetected by security forces that were actively sweeping the area. As dawn approached, Sarah prepared for what she knew would be the most challenging day of her military career. The quiet girl from Oregon who had learned to hunt in the forest with her grandfather was about to discover whether Turner's intensive training had prepared her for the reality of combat operations that would test every skill she had ever learned. The mountains of Afghanistan were about to become the classroom for a final examination that would determine not just her own survival, but the lives of soldiers who depended on her unique combination of medical expertise and capabilities that existed far beyond conventional military training. Dawn broke slowly over the Hindu Kush Mountains, painting the rocky peaks in shades of orange and gold that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Sarah maintained her observation position as the team began another day of careful surveillance, knowing that somewhere in the vast landscape before them, dangerous men were preparing to move through terrain that had been a battleground for centuries. Thompson's team had been in position for 36 hours, watching the approaches to what intelligence analysts believed would be the target's route through the valley. The advanced security team that Sarah had spotted during her night watch had disappeared before dawn, but their presence confirmed that major movement was imminent. Contact base. Thompson ordered Kim during the morning communication window. Report negative sightings, but confirm presence of advanced security elements in Sector 7. The coded language they used would inform their commanders that the target had not yet appeared, but that security preparations suggested the intelligence was accurate. Sarah listened to the radio traffic while conducting morning medical checks on team members, ensuring that the stress of extended field operations had not created health issues that could compromise their mission. Morrison, positioned in the team's primary observation post with advanced surveillance equipment, had been tracking movement patterns throughout the area since before dawn. His experience with long-range reconnaissance had taught him to identify the subtle signs that preceded major enemy movement, and what he observed suggested that their wait was almost over. "Sarge, I've got unusual activity in the Northern Valley," Morrison reported through the team's internal communication system. Multiple groups moving in coordination, but trying to maintain concealment. "This looks like the real thing." Sarah moved to Morrison's position, carrying her medical pack, but also the additional equipment that Turner had taught her to prepare for situations that might require capabilities beyond standard medical intervention. The observation post was positioned to provide maximum visibility while offering protection from enemy observation, a careful balance that required constant awareness of changing light conditions and potential exposure. Through Morrison's high-powered spotting scope, Sarah could observe the movement he had detected. Small groups of armed men were moving through terrain features that provided concealment from casual observation, but their coordination and timing suggested professional military training rather than simple insurgent activity. "Count 6 groups, 4 to 5 individuals each," Morrison whispered, providing the tactical assessment that would guide their response. "Moving with interval and coordination that indicates central command and control. Professional-level discipline." Thompson joined them at the observation post, using his own optics to confirm Morrison's assessment. What they observed was clearly more sophisticated than typical insurgent operations, suggesting that their target was indeed a high-value individual with access to well-trained security personnel. "This is our guy," Thompson concluded after several minutes of careful observation. "Question is whether we can identify the primary target among his security detail, and whether we can get a clear engagement opportunity." Sarah understood that the moment Turner had prepared her for was approaching rapidly. The target would be protected by experienced fighters who understood mountain warfare, and any engagement would require precision that exceeded conventional military capabilities. Her medical responsibilities remained paramount, but her additional training might soon become critical for mission success. "Doc, I want you positioned where you can support Morrison if this develops into an engagement scenario," Thompson directed. "Your job is still medical support, but if the situation requires additional capabilities, use your judgment." The careful wording acknowledged Sarah's specialized training without explicitly stating capabilities that remained classified even within their small team. Morrison understood that Sarah possessed skills beyond standard medical training, but the specific nature of Turner's instruction remained compartmentalized information. As the morning progressed, the security elements that Sarah and Morrison had been observing began to converge on a central location approximately 800 meters from their observation position. The movement patterns suggested that they were establishing security for the arrival of their principal, creating a defensive perimeter that would protect the target during his transit through the area. "Main element approaching from the north," Morrison reported as his surveillance equipment detected additional movement. "Single vehicle, 6 additional personnel on foot. Target is likely in the vehicle." Sarah focused her attention on the approaching group, using the observation skills that Turner had taught her to identify potential engagement scenarios. The terrain between their position and the target area included multiple elevation changes and rocky obstructions that would complicate any precision engagement, but also provided opportunities for concealment and movement if the tactical situation required it. The vehicle that Morrison had detected was a civilian truck that had been modified with armor plating and additional communications equipment. It moved slowly through the difficult terrain, surrounded by security personnel who maintained careful spacing and observation of potential threat areas. "Vehicle stops," Morrison announced as the truck reached what appeared to be a planned halt position. "Personnel dismounting, establishing security perimeter." No clear visual on primary target yet. Sarah watched through her own optics as the security team established defensive positions around the vehicle. Their movements suggested extensive training and experience with protecting high-value individuals in hostile environments. Any engagement with this group would require capabilities that exceeded conventional infantry tactics. Thompson made the decision that would test every aspect of their training and preparation. Morrison, can you get a clean shot on the vehicle if we can identify the target? Morrison studied the terrain and the target area through his scope, calculating angles, distances, and environmental factors that would affect accuracy. After several minutes of careful assessment, he provided his professional opinion. Negative, Sarge. Too much intervening terrain, and the security team has good positioning. I can't guarantee a clean shot from this position. Sarah realized that Morrison's assessment created a tactical problem that conventional weapons could not solve. The target was protected by terrain and security measures that made standard engagement procedures ineffective. But Turner's training had prepared her for exactly this type of scenario. What about from the eastern ridge? Sarah asked, indicating a position approximately 400 meters from their current location that would provide a different angle of approach to the target area. Thompson and Morrison studied the position she had suggested, using their tactical experience to assess its advantages and risks. The eastern ridge would provide a clearer line of sight to the target area, but reaching it would require movement through terrain that could expose them to enemy observation. Too far for Morrison to move without compromising our position, Thompson concluded, and too risky for the team to relocate with enemy forces this close. Sarah understood that the moment had arrived when her specialized training would determine the mission's outcome. Turner's instruction had prepared her for independent operations that supported team objectives while maintaining operational security that protected classified capabilities. I can reach that position, Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying the confidence that Turner's training had instilled. Medical cover for the team requires positioning that supports all mission requirements. Thompson looked at her carefully, understanding that her words carried meanings beyond their surface content. He had been briefed on her special qualifications, though not on their specific nature or extent. His combat experience told him that Sarah was proposing a solution that went far beyond conventional medical support. Negative, Doc, Thompson replied after a moment of consideration. Too dangerous for medical personnel to operate independently in this environment. Sarah met his gaze with the steady calm that her grandfather had taught her, and Turner had refined. Some medical interventions require positioning that supports patient care through multiple means. Sometimes the best way to save lives is to eliminate the threats that endanger them. Morrison understood her meaning immediately, recognizing in her words the philosophy of precision engagement that guided special operations snipers. Thompson realized that Sarah was offering capabilities that could solve their tactical problem, but implementing her solution would require trusting skills that he had not personally observed. The radio crackled with an urgent transmission from their base. Thunder 1-6. Be advised that signals intelligence indicates your target is preparing to depart your area within the next hour. This may be your only engagement opportunity. Thompson faced a command decision that would affect not only their current mission, but potentially dozens of future operations that depended on eliminating a threat that had been responsible for numerous coalition casualties. His training and experience told him to stick to conventional tactics, but the tactical situation made conventional engagement impossible. Doc, what exactly are you proposing? Thompson asked, his question acknowledging that Sarah possessed capabilities beyond her official medical designation. Sarah's response drew directly from Turner's teaching about the integration of medical ethics and tactical necessity. My primary responsibility is preserving life. Sometimes that requires eliminating threats that endanger the lives I'm responsible for protecting. I have training that allows me to accomplish medical objectives through unconventional means. Thompson made a decision that reflected both his trust in Sarah's capabilities and his understanding of the mission's importance. You have 15 minutes to reach your position. Maintain radio contact and abort if the situation becomes untenable. Sarah moved immediately, carrying her medical pack and the additional equipment that Turner had taught her to prepare for exactly this scenario. The route to the eastern ridge required careful navigation through terrain that provided concealment while avoiding areas that might be observed by enemy security forces. Turner's movement techniques guided her progress as she traversed rocky slopes and negotiated obstacles that would challenge experienced infantry soldiers. Her medical training contributed to her movement efficiency, as her understanding of human physiology helped her manage exertion and maintain the steady breathing that precision shooting required. The eastern ridge position provided exactly the tactical advantage that Sarah had recognized during her initial assessment. From this location, she could observe the target area with minimal obstruction while remaining concealed from enemy observation. More importantly, the angle and distance created engagement parameters that matched the specialized training Turner had provided. Thunder 1-6. This is Thunder 1-6 Medical, Sarah reported through her radio as she established her firing position. In position and ready to provide advanced medical support. The coded language acknowledged her readiness to engage while maintaining operational security about her true capabilities. Thompson understood that Sarah was prepared to execute the precision engagement that Morrison could not accomplish from the team's original position. Through her custom scope, Sarah could observe the target area with clarity that exceeded standard military optics. The equipment Turner had provided was calibrated specifically for her shooting techniques and the environmental conditions they were likely to encounter during mountain operations. The security team around the vehicle maintained their professional positioning, but Sarah's elevated position and specialized equipment allowed her to identify areas where their defensive perimeter had limitations. More importantly, she could observe movement around the vehicle that suggested the primary target was preparing to continue his journey. Movement around the vehicle, Sarah reported. Individual matching target description preparing to remount. Sarah applied the range estimation techniques that Turner had taught her, calculating the precise distance to the target area while accounting for elevation differences and environmental factors that would affect ballistic performance. The range was approximately 750 meters, well within her trained capabilities, but requiring precision that exceeded conventional military marksmanship. Wind conditions were minimal, but Sarah followed Turner's instructions to observe natural indicators that would reveal air currents invisible to standard measurement equipment. The movement of vegetation, dust patterns, and her own sensory awareness combined to provide the environmental assessment that precision shooting required. Target identified, Sarah reported as a figure matching intelligence descriptions appeared near the vehicle, preparing to provide definitive medical intervention. The careful language maintained operational security while informing Thompson that she had identified the high-value target and was prepared to engage. Her medical training contributed to her tactical assessment, as her understanding of human anatomy would ensure that any engagement eliminated the threat permanently. Through her scope, Sarah could see the target clearly for the first time. He was an older man whose calm demeanor suggested extensive experience with dangerous operations, surrounded by security personnel who showed the alertness of professionals who understood their environment's risks. Turner's voice echoed in her memory as she prepared for the shot. A precision engagement is not about the weapon or the range or the conditions. It's about the moment when everything you have learned converges into a single point of perfect clarity. Sarah controlled her breathing, entered the meditative state that Turner had taught her, and prepared to demonstrate whether a quiet girl from Oregon had truly learned what it meant to be both a guardian and a healer in a world where sometimes those roles required the same decisive action. Time seemed to slow as Sarah settled into the firing position that Turner had taught her, her body finding the natural point of aim that came from months of precise instruction and years of hunting with her grandfather. Through her scope, the target area appeared with crystalline clarity that seemed to eliminate everything else in the world except the critical decision that lay ahead. The high-value target moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to operating in dangerous environments. But Sarah could see that his security measures had limitations that her elevated position and specialized training could exploit. He was positioned near the rear of the armored vehicle, conducting what appeared to be a final coordination meeting with his security team leaders before continuing his journey. Thunder 1-6 Medical, target is static and exposed, Sarah reported through her radio, her voice carrying the calm that Turner had trained her to maintain under pressure. Recommend immediate medical intervention before target becomes mobile again. Thompson's response came immediately. Thunder 16 Medical, you are cleared for whatever intervention you deem medically necessary. The authorization used language that maintained plausible cover for any monitoring of their communications. But Sarah understood that she had been given clearance to engage the target using her specialized capabilities. The weight of that authorization settled on her shoulders as she made final adjustments to her scope and verified her range calculations. Turner's teaching guided her preparation as she entered the meditative state that separated precision shooters from conventional marksmen. Her breathing became controlled and rhythmic. Her heart rate slowed to minimize any movement that might affect accuracy, and her mental focus narrowed to encompass only the essential elements of the engagement. The distance was 750 meters across terrain that included elevation changes and wind patterns that required precise compensation. Sarah's scope settings reflected calculations that accounted for bullet drop, wind drift, and atmospheric conditions that would affect projectile performance. Every variable had been considered and incorporated into her firing solution. Through her scope, Sarah observed details that would be invisible to conventional observation. The target's body language suggested alertness and caution, but not immediate awareness of threat. His security team maintained their positions, but their attention was focused on ground-level approaches rather than elevated firing positions that required specialized equipment to exploit. Sarah's medical training contributed to her tactical assessment as she identified the anatomical details that would ensure a clean, immediate incapacitation. Turner had taught her that precision engagement was as much about understanding human physiology as it was about ballistics and marksmanship. Wind is minimal, range is confirmed, target remains exposed, Sarah whispered into her radio, providing a final status report before executing the engagement that would test every aspect of her training. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory from countless hunting expeditions in the Oregon forests. The moment before the shot is when you must be most calm, little one. All your preparation has led to this instant. Trust your training, trust your equipment, and trust yourself. Turner's more recent instruction overlaid her grandfather's wisdom with tactical precision. A sniper's greatest skill is knowing when the shot is perfect and when it is not. Wait for perfection, but recognize it when it arrives. Sarah's breathing reached the natural respiratory pause that Turner had taught her to recognize, the moment when her body was most stable and her nervous system most controlled. Her finger found the trigger's break point, that precise position where minimal additional pressure would release the shot. The scope's reticle settled on the target with the steady precision that came from months of practice on ranges that didn't appear on any official maps. Sarah's body had become an organic firing platform that Turner had refined through instruction that pushed her capabilities far beyond conventional military training. "Shot ready," Sarah whispered, her final words before executing the engagement that would determine whether a dangerous enemy continued to threaten coalition forces and Afghan civilians. Time suspended as Sarah applied the final trigger pressure that Turner had taught her to execute. The rifle recoiled with familiar authority, but her trained body absorbed the movement while maintaining visual contact with the target through her scope. The specialized ammunition that Turner had provided performed exactly as calculated, tracking toward the target across 750 meters of mountain air. The impact was immediate and decisive. The high-value target dropped instantly, his threat to future operations eliminated by a single shot that demonstrated the difference between conventional marksmanship and the precision that Turner had spent months developing. "Target down," Sarah reported, her voice maintaining professional calm despite the magnitude of what she had just accomplished. Medical intervention successful. The reaction among the target's security team was immediate and predictable. They took cover positions while attempting to identify the source of the attack, but their ground-level perspective and conventional training had not prepared them for engagement from the elevated position that Sarah had chosen. Security forces are reacting, but cannot locate firing position. Sarah continued her report while observing the target area for additional threats. Recommend immediate extraction before they expand their search area. Thompson's response reflected both relief and professional appreciation for Sarah's capabilities. "Outstanding work. Document move immediately to Extraction Point Alpha. We'll cover your movement and meet you there. Sarah began her withdrawal from the firing position using techniques that Turner had taught her for disengagement from elevated shooting positions. The route required careful movement through terrain that provided concealment while avoiding areas where enemy forces might establish observation posts during their search for the sniper who had eliminated their leader. The extraction point was a small valley approximately 1 kilometer from Sarah's firing position, chosen because it provided multiple approach routes while offering concealment from enemy observation. Thompson's team would reach the location using a different route, allowing them to provide security while maintaining plausible separation from the precision engagement that had eliminated the target. Sarah's movement toward the extraction point required 45 minutes of careful navigation through terrain that challenged her physical conditioning and tactical skills. Turner's training had prepared her for exactly this type of independent movement through hostile territory, where a single mistake could compromise not only her own safety, but the entire mission. As she moved, Sarah could hear the sounds of the enemy security team conducting their search for the sniper who had eliminated their leader. Their efforts were focused on areas that conventional tactics suggested as likely firing positions, but Turner's instruction had taught her to choose locations that exceeded normal tactical expectations. Thunder 1-6. This is Thunder 1-6 Medical, Sarah reported as she approached the extraction point. Moving to medical evacuation point as planned. No pursuit detected. Thompson's team reached the extraction point simultaneously, having used their own route that maintained their cover story as a reconnaissance team conducting routine surveillance operations. Their coordination reflected professional planning that would support the official version of events that would appear in classified after-action reports. "Doc, that was exceptional work," Thompson said as the team prepared for movement back toward their insertion point. "Your medical intervention eliminated a significant threat to coalition forces throughout this region." Sarah understood that Thompson's praise acknowledged capabilities that would never be officially recognized, but that had proven critical for mission success. Her combination of medical training and specialized instruction had provided solutions that conventional military capabilities could not achieve. The movement back toward their insertion point took most of the remaining day, as the team used routes that avoided areas where enemy forces might be conducting searches related to their leader's elimination. Thompson maintained communication with their base, providing coded updates that confirmed mission success while maintaining operational security about the specific methods employed. "Base, this is Thunder 1-6, Thompson reported during their final communication before extraction. Medical intervention was successful. Target threat has been permanently resolved through advanced medical procedures. Team is moving to extraction point." The helicopter extraction occurred during darkness, using procedures that minimized exposure to enemy observation while providing rapid departure from an area where hostile forces would soon be conducting intensive searches. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of mission completion as their aircraft climbed toward the safety of forward operating Base Sentinel. During the flight back to base, Sarah reflected on the events that had led from her grandfather's quiet lessons in the Oregon woods to this moment of proven capability in the mountains of Afghanistan. Turner's training had prepared her for exactly the scenario they had just completed, but the reality of applying those skills in combat had tested her in ways that no training exercise could replicate. "Doc, I don't know exactly what kind of advanced training you've had," Morrison said as they flew through the darkness, "but what you did today was way beyond anything I've ever seen. That was some serious precision work." Sarah appreciated his recognition while understanding that the specific nature of her training would remain classified regardless of its effectiveness. Turner's instruction had prepared her not only for precision engagement, but also for the operational security that protected classified capabilities from discovery. The debriefing at Forward Operating Base Sentinel involved personnel whose security clearances allowed them to discuss mission details that would never appear in standard military reports. Sarah's role in the operation's success was acknowledged and documented in classified systems that tracked the performance of soldiers with specialized capabilities. Specialist Chin's performance during this operation demonstrates exceptional medical capabilities that significantly enhanced mission effectiveness, Captain Rodriguez wrote in her evaluation report. Her ability to provide medical support under extreme conditions while maintaining situational awareness that contributed to overall mission success reflects training and capabilities that exceed standard medical preparation. The careful language acknowledged Sarah's contributions while maintaining the classification of abilities that remained compartmentalized even within the special operations community. Turner's training program was known only to those with specific need-to-know authorization, and Sarah's successful demonstration of those capabilities would remain documented only in the most classified military systems. But Sarah knew that the operation had proven more than her technical capabilities. It had demonstrated that a quiet girl from Oregon had successfully integrated her grandfather's wisdom, her medical training, and Turner's specialized instruction into abilities that could protect American soldiers and eliminate threats to innocent civilians. The mountains of Afghanistan had provided the final examination for training that began in the forests of Oregon and was refined in classified facilities that didn't appear on any official maps. Sarah had passed that examination with a single shot that eliminated a dangerous enemy and protected countless future victims of his planned attacks. As she settled into her quarters at Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Sarah understood that her deployment would likely include additional missions that required her unique combination of medical expertise and specialized capabilities. Turner's training had prepared her for operations that pushed the boundaries of conventional military procedures, and her successful performance had established her value to commanders who understood the importance of soldiers who could operate effectively in the gray areas between traditional roles. The quiet medical specialist who treated routine injuries and illnesses at a remote mountain base was also a precision shooter whose capabilities remained known only to those who needed to understand the full range of tools available for protecting American forces and accomplishing critical missions. Sarah's transformation from her grandfather's hunting student to Turner's specialized protege was complete, but her service in the mountains of Afghanistan would continue to test and refine abilities that represented the convergence of family wisdom, military training, and specialized instruction that created capabilities far beyond conventional expectations. 3 months after the successful elimination of the high-value target, Sarah had settled into a routine at Forward Operating Base Sentinel that balanced her official medical duties with the unofficial capabilities that had proven so valuable during her first major operation. Her days were filled with treating routine medical issues, conducting training with patrol teams, and maintaining the specialized equipment that Turner had provided for her unique mission requirements. The success of the mountain operation had created ripple effects throughout the intelligence community, though few people understood the specific methods that had made the mission possible. The elimination of the target had disrupted insurgent networks across the region, leading to decreased attacks on coalition forces and improved security for Afghan civilian populations. Captain Rodriguez had recommended Sarah for recognition that would reflect her contributions without revealing classified capabilities, but Turner's program operated in shadows that precluded official acknowledgement. The nature of her service required satisfaction that came from mission success rather than public recognition, a reality that Turner had prepared her to accept during their training sessions. "Specialist Chun, I need you to join Thompson's team for another operation," Rodriguez informed her during a routine medical briefing. "Intelligence has developed information about a weapons cache that poses significant threats to our operations, and your medical expertise might be required under challenging conditions." Sarah understood that Rodriguez's carefully worded request indicated another mission that would require her specialized capabilities beyond conventional medical support. Thompson's team had become the preferred unit for operations that needed precision engagement options that existed outside normal military procedures. The briefing for the new operation took place in the same secure conference room where Sarah had first learned about her role in eliminating the high-value target. Present were Thompson and his team, Rodriguez, and the mysterious Mr. Johnson, whose civilian appearance continued to disguise military credentials that remained classified. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have identified a significant weapons storage facility approximately 20 kilometers north of our position," Johnson began, indicating locations on a detailed topographic map that showed terrain even more challenging than their previous operation. This facility contains advanced weaponry that poses serious threats to coalition forces throughout the region. The intelligence briefing revealed that the weapons cache included anti-aircraft missiles that could threaten helicopter operations, advanced explosive devices designed to defeat coalition vehicle armor, and specialized equipment that had been supplied by external sources with interests in maintaining regional instability. The facility is protected by a security force that includes individuals with advanced military training, Johnson continued. Standard assault procedures would likely result in significant coalition casualties, and the defenders would probably destroy the weapons rather than allow them to be captured. Sarah realized that the mission parameters were similar to their previous operation, requiring capabilities that exceeded conventional military options while minimizing risks to friendly forces. The terrain around the target would make standard approaches difficult, but it might also provide opportunities for precision engagement that could neutralize key threats before they could organize effective resistance. Staff Sergeant Thompson's team will conduct reconnaissance of the facility to identify security measures and develop engagement options, Johnson explained. Medical support will be critical, given the isolated location and potential for extended operations. Thompson's team had been reinforced with additional personnel who possessed specialized capabilities for operations against hardened targets. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos had been added as a demolitions expert, while Staff Sergeant Robert Chong brought advanced communications equipment that would allow coordination with helicopter support and intelligence assets. Sarah's preparation for the operation included additional equipment that Turner's contacts had provided through classified supply channels. The new gear included advanced night vision capabilities, additional specialized ammunition, and communication equipment that would allow her to coordinate directly with intelligence assets if the tactical situation required independent action. "Doc, this operation is going to push all of our capabilities," Thompson explained during their team preparation session. "The target is well defended, the terrain is challenging, and we'll be operating at maximum range from friendly support. Your medical skills might be critical for keeping us operational, but your other capabilities could be equally important for mission success." The insertion for the weapons cache operation took place during a moonless night that provided maximum concealment, but made navigation challenging even with night vision equipment. The helicopter pilot used terrain features to mask their approach, flying through mountain valleys that required exceptional skill to navigate safely. The landing zone was even more remote than their previous operation, located in terrain that would make extraction difficult if their mission was compromised. Sarah felt the familiar calm that came with dangerous operations as she checked her equipment and prepared for movement through mountains that had challenged military forces for centuries. Thompson's team moved through terrain that required technical climbing skills in addition to standard infantry capabilities. Sarah's medical training contributed to her physical conditioning, allowing her to maintain the pace despite carrying additional equipment that included both medical supplies and the specialized gear that Turner had taught her to prepare for precision engagement scenarios. The weapons facility was located in a cave complex that had been expanded and fortified to create storage areas that were protected from aerial observation and conventional ground assault. Intelligence reports suggested that the facility included sleeping areas for guards, communication equipment, and defensive positions that covered the most likely approach routes. Natural fortress, Morrison observed as the team established their observation position approximately 1 kilometer from the target. Whoever chose this location understood defensive advantages and how to use terrain to maximum benefit. Sarah studied the target area through her optics, applying the analytical skills that Turner had taught her to identify potential engagement opportunities and assess the challenges that conventional assault would face. The cave complex was positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire that would make direct assault extremely costly. Security force appears to be 12 to 15 individuals, Thompson reported after extended observation. Professional-level weapons and positioning. These aren't typical insurgents. The team's reconnaissance continued for 18 hours, during which they identified guard rotations, communication procedures, and defensive preparations that confirmed intelligence assessments about the facility's importance and the training level of its defenders. "Base, this is Thunder 1-6, Thompson reported during their scheduled communication window. Target confirmation positive, security measures extensive. Request guidance on engagement options given defensive preparations. The response from base operations reflected command-level consultation that included intelligence assets and operational planners who understood the strategic importance of the weapons cache. Thunder 1-6. Mission priority is elimination of weapons storage and neutralization of security force. Use maximum capabilities available for mission accomplishment. Sarah understood that the authorization provided Thompson with clearance to use all available resources, including her specialized capabilities, to accomplish a mission that conventional assault might not achieve without unacceptable casualties. During the second night of observation, Sarah identified tactical opportunities that her unique training allowed her to exploit. The cave complex had defensive advantages, but those same features created limitations that precision engagement could overcome if executed from positions that the defenders had not anticipated. I can reach a position that overlooks their primary defensive positions, Sarah informed Thompson during their planning session. Medical requirements for this operation might include eliminating threats that would prevent successful casualty evacuation. Thompson's combat experience told him that Sarah was proposing a solution that could turn their tactical disadvantage into an opportunity for mission success. Her precision engagement capabilities could neutralize key defenders before they could organize resistance, allowing the team to secure the weapons cache without the casualties that direct assault would likely produce. Doc, what kind of support do you need to provide that level of medical intervention? Thompson asked, using their established code language to discuss capabilities that remained classified. Approximately 4 hours to reach optimal position for comprehensive medical support, Sarah replied. Once positioned, I can provide immediate intervention for any threats to team medical safety. The plan that emerged from their discussion reflected the integration of conventional special operations tactics with Sarah's precision engagement capabilities. Thompson's team would position themselves to assault the cave complex once Sarah had eliminated key defenders from her elevated position, using coordination that would maximize their advantages while minimizing exposure to enemy fire. Sarah's movement to her firing position required navigation through terrain that challenged even her enhanced training and conditioning. The route included technical climbing sections that required rope work, movement across exposed areas that demanded perfect timing to avoid detection, and final positioning that pushed her physical capabilities to their limits. The firing position that Sarah eventually reached provided exactly the tactical advantage that Turner's training had taught her to identify. From this location, she could observe the entire target area with minimal obstruction while remaining completely concealed from enemy observation. Through her scope, Sarah could see individual defenders with clarity that revealed details invisible to conventional observation. Their positioning and equipment confirmed intelligence assessments about their training level, but also revealed limitations in their defensive preparations that precision engagement could exploit. Thunder 1-6. This is Thunder 1-6 Medical, Sarah reported as she completed her final preparations. In position and ready to provide comprehensive medical intervention. Multiple patients identified and treatment options confirmed. Thompson's response reflected his confidence in Sarah's capabilities and his understanding of the mission's importance. Thunder 1-6 Medical, you are cleared to begin treatment as soon as conditions are optimal. Team is ready to move on your signal. Sarah applied range estimation techniques that accounted for the complex terrain between her position and the target area, calculating ballistic solutions for multiple engagements that would eliminate key defenders in sequence. Turner's training had prepared her for exactly this type of complex engagement that required precision shooting under time pressure. The first shot eliminated the sentry, who controlled observation of the primary approach route. The second shot neutralized the machine gun position that covered the cave entrance. The third shot eliminated the communications operator before he could alert other insurgent forces in the region. Treatment completed for primary patients, Sarah reported as Thompson's team began their assault on the now-disrupted defensive position. Additional medical intervention available as required. Thompson's assault proceeded with textbook precision, as his team exploited the confusion created by Sarah's precision engagement to secure the cave complex before the remaining defenders could organize effective resistance. The weapons cache proved to contain even more dangerous equipment than intelligence reports had suggested, including surface-to-air missiles that could have threatened coalition aircraft throughout the region. The extraction helicopter arrived precisely on schedule, using coordinates that had been planned to provide maximum security for a team that had successfully eliminated a major threat to coalition operations. Sarah felt the satisfaction that came with mission success as they climbed toward the safety of Forward Operating Base Sentinel. "Doc, I don't know how you do what you do," Santos said during the flight home. "But what you accomplished today saved lives and eliminated threats that could have caused major problems for months to come." Sarah's response reflected the philosophy that Turner had taught her about the integration of medical ethics and tactical necessity. Sometimes the best medical intervention is preventing injuries before they occur. Eliminating threats to friendly forces is another way of practicing medicine. The debriefing for the weapons cache operation included recognition from command levels that understood the strategic importance of the mission's success. Sarah's contributions were acknowledged in classified systems that tracked the performance of soldiers whose capabilities exceeded conventional military training. Master Sergeant Turner appeared at Forward Operating Base Sentinel 1 week after the weapons cache operation, arriving without advance notice in the way that had become his signature. His presence indicated that Sarah's performance had attracted attention from the highest levels of the Special Operations community. "Specialist Chun, I understand you've been putting your training to good use," Turner said as they met in the secure area where classified discussions could take place without concern for operational security. "Your recent operations demonstrate integration of medical and tactical capabilities that exceed even my expectations." Turner's visit included evaluation of Sarah's continued development and discussion of additional training opportunities that would expand her capabilities even further. The success of her operations had proven the value of soldiers who could operate effectively in multiple roles, providing medical support, while also offering precision engagement options that conventional units could not match. "There are additional programs available for soldiers who have demonstrated your level of capability," Turner explained. "Advanced training that would prepare you for operations that push the boundaries of conventional military procedures even further." Sarah's response reflected the confidence that successful operations had given her, but also the understanding that her grandfather's wisdom and Turner's training had prepared her for service that would continue to test her capabilities. "I'm ready for whatever training will make me more effective at protecting American soldiers and accomplishing critical missions." Turner's smile suggested satisfaction with her response and confidence in her continued development. "I thought you might say that. Your next assignment will provide opportunities to apply everything you've learned while developing capabilities that will serve national interests in ways that few soldiers ever have the chance to contribute." As Turner departed Forward Operating Base Sentinel, Sarah understood that her transformation from her grandfather's quiet hunting student to a precision shooter whose capabilities remained among the military's most classified secrets was continuing to evolve. The mountains of Afghanistan had provided the testing ground for abilities that would serve American interests in locations and situations that she could not yet imagine. The quiet medical specialist who treated routine injuries at a remote mountain base had proven herself to be something far more significant. A guardian whose unique combination of medical expertise and precision engagement capabilities made her one of the military's most valuable but least recognized assets. Sarah's story would never appear in newspapers or military publications, but it would live on in the classified records that tracked operations that protected American lives and eliminated threats to national security. Her legacy would be measured not in medals or recognition, but in missions accomplished and lives saved through capabilities that existed in the shadows where America's most critical work was done. The girl who learned to hunt in the Oregon woods had become a legend whose name would be whispered with respect in the most classified corners of the special operations community. A guardian whose story would inspire future generations of soldiers who understood that sometimes the most important service required abilities that could never be officially acknowledged.